So my Jedi, it's got these the pouches, right? There's nothing wrong with them. They're just shaped kind of weird. And I don't have any pockets, except for pants pockets for my Jedi. And I wear glasses. I thought, let's try wet molding leather. I've never done that before. I made a positive, right? It looks pretty neat. I'm happy with it. It's got an interesting shape to it. I wanted it to have, like, it's, you know, a slightly worn, very uneven look. It's not going to be this tall. I figure if I wet mold this part, I can cut it here so that it's got a lid, you know? So I figured we're going to give it a shot. We're going to do this together. I've never done this before. It may not work at all, and if it doesn't, you'll never see the video. But first thing I did was I did a bunch of carving, which you'll see here. Now I got some leather. It's been in water. I'm fully casing this, soaking it in water for a while, because I figure cased leather should be easier to manipulate than just wet leather. We'll see. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I should probably put something down so I don't mess up my table. My beautiful, beautiful table. Let's just start with the easy. It's a nice leather. We picked it up at Tandy. This is what's called utility leather. And that's super important. Because utility leather is very nice leather that's got a problem with it. You know, like there's a bullet hole or a mar in the middle of it and they can't really do anything with it. So you tend to get utility leather way cheaper than normal leather, which has worked in my advantage. I have some cording here. I could wrap the whole thing. See how that looks? Maybe I should staple it. Like I said, we're going through this together. I have no idea. Maybe we'll grab a staple gun. See what we can do. Right? This is a learning process for the both of us. Let's see what we can do. This should be interesting. Like I said, I've never done this. My goal is to have it overlap a bit so I can attach a back panel. Can't find my bone folder, so this may not work at all. I may just get a rough shape, which is still not that bad. So this is just an experiment. I have no idea if any of what I'm doing is right or will work. The original thought was to make a positive and a negative and just clamp the thing. Let it do whatever it wanted to over a couple of days. I know, actual leather workers are like, what are you doing? I don't know. That's the major takeaway. I have no idea. I'm doing it anyway, because that's how we learn. We mess around and then we find out. Let's mess around a little bit. Then we can find out. I was hoping it would stretch just a little more and I'd get a little more even end. This is just full of water, by the way. It's starting to dry out a little bit. It's pretty warm out today. I'm feeling this a thing that's going to be for a while, right? Hopefully, just a season. I got twine here, right? And I am thinking about wrapping the whole thing, but that leaves kind of a texture, and I don't want a texture just here. The bottom looks good. I like that. This part right here, perfect. This part, not so much. Leather will stretch. I don't know if I can get it to stretch as much as I need it to. Let's just pull, see what happens. I can get it to almost do what I want. So I'm at a point now, I put in a cut, probably get exactly what I'm looking for. But I don't know if I'm willing to compromise on what I had in mind. Also, this is vegetable tanned leather, which is important. Chrome tan doesn't keep a shape as well. All I'm doing is pushing and pulling, trying to shape it, right? Because I have to be complicated and do an interesting design. Obi-Wans were super interesting in the first movie, right? He had all kinds of weird shaped things, which is kind of what I'm going for here. A lot easier when you're not using actual leather. So I don't think this one's gonna work. I'm gonna let it dry. I'm gonna see where we're at. But while we wait, let's try something new. It's the next day. This did not work. But I do believe I have all of the needed information to make it work. Wet molding leather, way easier than I thought. Also way more complicated at the exact same time. That actually turned out way better than I thought. It's not terrible. Well, it's terrible because it's unusable. But it's not terrible because it's not completely unusable. So, plan B. All the adornments, these extra pieces, added after the fact. So we start with the basic shape. Just this and this, right? Kind of like if I'm putting FEP film on my printer. Just going to lay it flat, push it down. It's been soaking for a little while. Submerge it till the bubbles stop. A little dark humor for you. So I have enough here to fully wrap this, my blank. I don't want it instantly pulling the moisture out of the leather, so a little bit wet wouldn't be a bad idea. Then we just push. Alright, we're going to move you a little closer. We're going to face this way. So what I want to do is figure out how to clamp this down. Unfortunately, this is a two-person job, and I'm just a dude. I'm figuring this out as we go. I think I may go from the side. That's probably not going to work either. Could just hit it with a hammer. Let's see what that gets us. So I've got my mallet here. Direct transfer to the ground. Saves momentum and energy. Cracked. Kind of expected that. There's not much in the way of meat right there. So this is a little peek into how I do things. The weird processes that make up one of my projects. Because I rarely know what I'm doing when I start. I have a real good idea when I'm done, but I rarely have an idea when I start. We're going to redo the mold, probably put a back plate on it. So the biggest problem I have is I've got nothing to grab onto. There's too much room everywhere. I tried to set it up so I had enough to fully wrap the back as well. So I can make the whole thing out of one piece. I think that'll work way better. But I may have to cut a couple pieces here and there. Just trying to think, if this was fabric, how would I be doing this? And would it be any different than what I'm doing now? And the answer is yes. Alright. Now we leave it for another day. I was about ready to give up on it. The whole project. Then I just started messing with it. I've gotten it to this point. It's not the exact smooth I was going for on the sides, but it's not bad. To make a couple of big decisions now. So the way I did it is I hospital tucked the corners, and then I folded everything on top. To do that, I made a cut right at the edge. So I want, let me bring you around here so you can see what I'm seeing. So what I want to do, keep everything nice and tight, and we fold it. You can see right here, we're going to have a weird crease. So first thing I'm going to do, verify that that's the edge. We're going to make a cut. I'm stopping short of the corner, the same thing on the other side. Then when we pull everything in, it's got that kind of like, this is puffing up because I have a lot of extra leather here. The edges are right, and the top and bottom are right. So I need to remove excess material. And like you do with sewing, trimming the edges. That way when I pull everything back, it's way closer, but I've got this weird flap here, which means this needs to be cut just a little more. That's much better. It sticks out weird, but it's because this is on top. I really hope any of this makes sense to people, because I'm kind of just doing a thing, right? There's no real rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. I'm just trying to fold these corners in so they aren't as noticeable. I think that's about it. So we're going to peel up this because I want my corners in first. If you put the corners in first, you have a slightly cleaner edge. So now I'm just going to keep futzing with it till it looks closer to this. And the best way to do that is just make sure everything gets folded in and then down. So I just want it so this cut is as close to the edge as I can make it. It's not going to hold liquid, so if I'm a little over, Not the end of the world, right? And in the end, I'm just making a stupid pouch for a costume. And I have to figure out when enough is enough, and I'm just done. So now if you look, it's got that same feel I'm going for. Key for this point though, I'm gonna hit it with a hammer. You'd be surprised at how smushed and flattened this thing is gonna look as soon as I do that. So this is not like Tom Wren style leather work, but I do like how it looks. So I'm gonna dunk it in water, and then I'm gonna let it dry overnight. I wrapped it in shrink wrap and tape. So since this is not gonna air out very well, we're gonna give it a couple of days to dry. Let's see what we got with this one. I said, I wrapped the heck out of this thing. I really wanted it to keep its shape. I don't know if it did or not. It's like Christmas. Still feels a little damp, so we're probably gonna leave this as is unwrapped for a little bit now. But it's not bad. So we're gonna let that one dry too. So then we'll be back in a bit. Plenty of time to dry. Or do I just assume it's gonna work and cut everything out now? It needs a back panel, right? It'll probably have a loop. Let's see how well it holds its shape. I would say that's pretty well. That's not bad. Easily hold a pair of glasses, which is all I really want it for. That turned out fantastic. Leather's weird, right? I'm not 100% with it yet. I'm still amazed every time anything I'm like, hey, let's do this, and it works. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that actually worked. I followed the rules and everything does the thing. And I have to make that decision. Do I want a back panel? Or do I just want to put two rivets right here and hold everything in place? Because two rivets would just hold all of this completely in place. I think that's what we're going to do. So I want these to be as close to the bottom as I can. And then I'm going to snip away everything extra. Hopefully my rivets are long enough. I don't think they're going to be. I've always found that these tend to grab until you turn them. As soon as you turn them, everything tends to break loose. These are not going to be long enough. Let me go through my pile and see if I can find something else. We're moving on to gold. I don't often use gold, so I should have more of that than just about everything else. Luckily, I know exactly what order I want to put everything back in. Oh. I have a feeling this one seems a little more incoherent than normal some days, right? It's one step forward, two steps back. That's the dance we play. I've got these two Chicago screws from actually Tandy Chicago screws, right? I don't normally use these. They tend to be a bit on the pricey side, a little more than I'm normally willing to spend. They're also apparently a little bigger. Got two options. Keep fighting with it, and it will eventually go through. I just ream the hole out a little bit. I'm a little hesitant to ream out the hole, just because I'm worried that there's not a lot of meat there. Smart thing to do is to cut these into two separate pieces. It'd be way easier to work with. I'm not quite sure how I want it to look, where I want the cuts to be. So I'm trying to save that for last, just so I have more options. It's taken me about a week and a half to get to. I don't want to mess it up. Sunk cost fallacy. I've put a lot of time into this, so I have to do it right. And that is the wrong way to think about anything. Sure everything lines up. I have my mark on where I want to cut it. There's no way to measure this, right? Because it's a weird shape. As long as my tape ends where it starts, it should be pretty close to straight. Looks about right. My glasses are in there. I'll have plenty of room to grab them from. Enough that it'll fold over. That's where I want it. So I'm going to cut this completely off. There you go. Brand new razor blade and everything. Perfect. Now let's try this again. Probably going to bring you around so you can see what I'm fighting with. So I have all these layers, right? That I'm trying to get everything to go around and through, and it's just not easy. So I'm going to cut off a bunch of this excess, which will just make less leather to deal with. Like I said, these wider Chicago screws are actually much harder to work with. So all I'm doing, I've got a bolt here, trying to feed everything through, and then compress the leather enough that these two catch and twist out. I may be able to do this. Longer bolts would make this way easier. If I did the bolts on the inside and the screws on the outside, this would probably be easier too. I hate doing that, but I suppose it's not the end of the world. The entire reason I'm fighting with this, I didn't want to go out, excuse me. The entire reason I'm fighting with this is because I didn't want to go out and grab my drill. Just a stupid reason to a piece of leather for no reason. So now let's try this. Still probably not quite big enough. Look at how easy it is once you drill the hole the right size. The annoying part is I'm probably going to have to undo all this and put some Loctite on it just to make sure. These don't loosen up. It's not bad. Now the same thing with this side. It should be much easier. So I'm going to do it right from the beginning. Nice thing is if I make that a little smaller, I'll be able to make this go over. So now, here's the problem, right? Because these have weird scallop, and I don't know if that's just for decoration or if that's important. So I drill a couple holes and nothing lines up proper. It might be a problem. We're finding this out together, right? That's not terrible. So I'm thinking about putting a strip across the top like I did with the other one, and then putting a slot on it so I can Sam Brown button it in place. So I want this to slide over. Don't know if it can. I mean, I know it can, I just don't know if it can undo once it's over. So as it stands right now, I can afford to lose a decent amount of room. I really like how that looks. That looks fantastic. Eh? No reason. I just drew it. Right? Hopefully I'm at least close to accurate. Find out in a second. Let me get them in and out easier too. Well, that opens almost perfect. I put 2 holes right here and 2 more bolts that should hold everything together. I wrapped just a strip all the way around. I tapered the ends, put a snap on, and then just rivets to hold it in place. So now it opens, closes. It's pretty neat. I like it. It turned out fantastic.